My name is Lauren Parker. I am 28 years old. A few nights ago, my mom walked over to my desk and actually pushed it away from the wall. She did this so my brother could put his camera there. She didn't yell. She didn't ask me. She just said it like she had already decided. We are giving this room to him for his studio. You can work in the basement. My brother was standing in the doorway with his arms crossed. He watched my computer screens go dark like he was watching a fun show. He smiled and said, "You'll be fine down there, right? You won't have as many things to distract you." He said it like a joke, but he really meant it. That room was my office. I had built it piece by piece so I could work from home as a designer. The money I made paid the bills that kept our house running. I just stared at him, then at her. All I said was, "Okay." I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I packed my laptop, my hard drive, and a few things I could carry in one trip. I walked past them and went straight down the stairs like I was going to the basement just like they wanted. They had no idea that when I said okay, I really meant I'm done. That night, I moved out without making any noise. I changed way more than just where my desk was. The very next morning, they started calling me. Then came the texts, "We can't afford this without you. Please answer the phone." They called me over and over, like I was suddenly the only person in the world who could stop their lives from falling apart. If you've ever wondered what happens when the person your family takes for granted finally walks away, stay with me. The way they begged me to come back might make you think twice about how much you let people use you. Growing up, I always knew my family was a little unbalanced. But I didn't know how bad it was until money got involved. I was the kid who stayed up late finishing homework. I organized my notes with different colors. I really cared about my grades. Ethan, my younger brother, was the one everyone said was sensitive and creative. That seemed to mean the rules didn't apply to him. When I got into a good design school with a scholarship, my mom, Lynn, gave me a quick hug in the kitchen. She said, "That's great, honey. You were always responsible." When Ethan passed an online class he barely did any work for, she ordered a special cake from the bakery down the street. She posted about it on Facebook like he had discovered the cure for a disease. I learned early not to expect a celebration when I did something good. After college, rent in Manhattan was about $3,000 a month for a tiny apartment. Moving back home to our place in Brooklyn seemed like the only smart choice about money. I told myself it would only be for a little while, just until I saved up money from my design job and extra work. What really happened was I became the family's personal bank, computer help person, and problem solver. Nobody noticed this change except me. It started small. Mom's paycheck was less than usual one month and the electric bill was higher than normal, so I paid it. Then the internet got upgraded so Ethan could stream videos better without the connection slowing down. Somehow the new plan ended up on my credit card. Then came Netflix, Spotify, the shared phone plan, and extra groceries for all the takeout nights we called family time. I told myself, it's fine. I make more money. This is what you do when you love people. But every time my card automatically paid for another subscription that they couldn't live without for a week, I felt that little twist in my chest. When Ethan decided he wanted to be a content creator, Mom announced it like it was a real career, not just something he wanted to try. "He needs a little help," she said. "He has talent. He just needs support." Support meant I paid $600 for a TikTok creator course he never finished. Support meant I ordered him ring lights and phone stands from Amazon. Support meant I woke up at 2 in the morning to fix the internet when it stopped working during his late-night gaming streams because he was testing equipment. Meanwhile, my own work, the work that actually brought in money, happened quietly in the background. I turned that little room on the top floor into a real office because nobody else cared about it. I spent my own savings on a good desk, a comfortable chair, a second computer screen, a drawing tablet, and good lighting so I didn't look half dead on client video calls. I pinned project ideas to the walls, wrote notes on sticky pads, and built a real career in that space. That office was the difference between me barely getting by and me getting bigger projects, raises, and better clients. But whenever Mom talked about it, she said, "Lauren is lucky she can work from home." Lucky. Like it all just appeared without me working hard to get there. At the same time, she talked about Ethan like he was one viral video away from changing all our lives. She never once asked how many hours I spent fixing designs or solving problems other people ignored. She only noticed when a bill was due and somehow it magically got paid. I kept a running list in my notes app just for myself. The rent I gave her each month. The utilities I covered when she was short on money. Subscriptions I forgot I signed up for because everybody used them. Groceries. Takeout. Ubers for her when she didn't feel like taking the subway. Ubers for Ethan when he had some job interview he never actually went to. Every time I updated that list, the number at the bottom got uglier. Mom kept calling it family helping family. I started calling it me quietly losing money so they could pretend everything was fine. The worst part was that they truly believed they were the ones struggling the most. Ethan would sigh about how hard it was to make it as a creator while sitting in the room I paid to heat, scrolling through sneakers he wanted. Mom would complain about prices going up, and I would hold my tongue instead of pointing out that my name was on half the accounts that made her life comfortable. I knew that I had let this happen. I said yes too many times. I fixed things before they ever had to feel what happened when they made bad choices. I smoothed every rough edge. And because I kept doing it, they thought I always would. That was how things worked. That was the pattern. Lauren will handle it. Lauren will pay for it. Lauren will fix it. I just never expected they would push me out of the very room that made all of that possible. The night my mom pushed me out of my own office, something in me finally stopped making excuses for them. I started asking the one question I had avoided for years: what would actually happen if I didn't handle it this time? That question wouldn't leave me alone. It followed me into the shower, into my dreams, into the quiet moments between meetings when my camera was off and I stopped smiling. What would happen if I didn't fix it this time? That night, after my mom told me to use the basement, I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling. My laptop was open, but I wasn't working. Instead, I opened a website that showed apartments for rent. I typed in Queen Studio and searched. I told myself I was just curious. The rent prices still made my stomach hurt. But for the first time, they didn't feel completely impossible. I had savings. Not a ton of money, but enough. I scrolled past dark, depressing places until one caught my eye. A small studio apartment in a quiet part of Queens with a big window facing the street and just enough wall space for a desk and shelves. The pictures showed sunlight on wood floors and a tiny kitchen with white cabinets. It wasn't fancy, but as I looked through the photos, I could already see where my computer screen would go, where I would tape up my project ideas, where I would put a plant and pretend I was the kind of person who remembered to water it. I checked the price 3 times. $2,200 a month. High, but not impossible. When I added up what I made and what I would stop spending on everyone else, I stared at the total in my notes app, the one tracking what I had poured into this house. I realized that in 1 year, I had already paid enough to cover several months of that studio. But I had nothing to show for it that actually belonged to me. The next morning, I told Mom I had an early meeting at a client's office in Queens. Technically, it wasn't a lie. Someone there was about to decide my future. I took the train, holding a folder with my pay stubs and ID. My heart was pounding like I was going to a job interview. The landlord was an older woman with kind eyes and a serious voice. She opened the door. The place was even smaller than it looked online, but it was clean. It was quiet. And most importantly, it would be mine if I wanted it. We sat at the tiny counter that was used as a dining table while she went over the lease. "You work from home?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm a designer. I just need good internet and a place to put a desk." She nodded like that made sense. "We don't allow parties," she said. "No loud music, no drama." I almost laughed. That's exactly what I'm trying to get away from. When she slid the lease paper over to me, my hand shook for a second. My brain threw every fear at me at once. What if your work runs out? What if this is a bad decision? What if your family hates you? Then another thought broke through all of that. They already treat you like you owe them your whole life, and they still didn't think twice about pushing you out. I signed. I transferred the first month's rent and the deposit. $6,600 disappearing from my account in one click. It hurt, but it also felt clean. This wasn't like throwing money into a never-ending hole of bills and excuses. This was building something for me. On the train ride back to Brooklyn, I kept touching the new key in my pocket. That little piece of metal meant I finally had a way out. When I walked in the door, Ethan was on the couch, shouting into his headset at some video game. Plates from last night's takeout were still on the coffee table. Mom was at the kitchen counter, scrolling on her phone, complaining quietly about the price of groceries. Nobody asked how my client meeting went. Nobody noticed anything had changed. That was fine. It actually made what I did next easier. I started small. That night when they asked what we should order for dinner, I said I already ate. The next day when Mom texted me to add some things to the grocery delivery, I replied, I can't cover extra this week. My budget is tight. It was the first time I had said no in years. There was a pause, then just a thumbs-up emoji. The internet stopped working during one of Ethan's streams and he ran upstairs to my office, or what was still technically my office for a few more days. Hey Lauren, can you reset the router? It's doing that thing again. I looked at my screen at the project I was testing. I have a deadline, I said without looking away. You can figure it out. He stood there for a second like he had never heard those words from me before. Eventually, he said something under his breath and walked back down. The world didn't end. A couple nights later, when Mom mentioned needing an Uber for an early shift because she didn't want to deal with the subway, I told her I couldn't put it on my account this time. Maybe ask Ethan or take the train. She gave me a look like I had just spoken another language. Are you okay? She asked. You always help. I forced a smile. I'm just trying to be smarter with my money. It sounded so casual out loud, but inside it felt like ripping up an old pattern. Every time I said no, it got a little easier to say the next one. Behind the scenes, I started moving pieces of my life out of that house. The first thing that left was my external hard drive with all my work files. Then my sketchbooks, my favorite pens, a stack of clothes I could fit into a bag. I told them I was cleaning out my room, taking things to a storage space, dropping stuff at a friend's place. None of it was technically a lie. The storage space just happened to be my new studio apartment. I would finish my last meeting of the day, close my laptop, and then put it into my backpack instead of leaving it on the desk. I took my computer screen down one weekend, saying it was acting weird and I wanted to get it checked. Little by little, my office became less my space and more just a room. They were too focused on Ethan's next idea for his channel and Mom's overtime schedule to notice how empty the shelves were getting. At night after they went to bed, I would make quiet trips to Queens, carrying boxes down the stairs one load at a time so the old steps wouldn't creak too much. Every time I unlocked that new door and stepped into the silent studio, I felt like I could breathe a little easier. I would set a box down, look around at the bare walls and hear my footsteps echo, and think, this is where I stopped being the person who fixes everything for everyone else first. I hadn't told them I was leaving yet. I wanted my exit ready before I said the words. If my mom could decide I no longer had a right to the space that paid for their life in a single conversation at the dinner table, then I could decide in silence that I was done paying for it. By the time they officially turned my old office into Ethan's studio with his cheap ring light and sneaker boxes stacked in the corner, almost everything that mattered to me was already gone. What they were really pushing out wasn't just a desk. It was the last bit of control they had without even knowing it. It all really broke a couple weeks later. By then, most of my important stuff was already in Queens, but I was still sleeping in my old room, still pretending nothing had changed. One Saturday afternoon, I came home from getting coffee and noticed something felt wrong when I walked past the door of what used to be my office. The room was open with light coming in. Ethan's voice drifted out as he talked to his phone, testing camera angles. I stepped inside and my eyes went straight to the empty spot where my comfortable chair used to be. The cheap folding chair from the basement was there instead, wobbling under Ethan as he adjusted his camera stand. My stomach dropped. "Hey, where's my chair?" I asked, even though I already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. Ethan barely looked back. "Mom sold it," he said. "We needed the money for my microphone." The words hit harder than I expected. I turned and walked straight to the kitchen. I found Mom rinsing dishes like it was any other day. "Where's my chair?" I repeated. She didn't even look up at first. "Oh, that," she said. "I listed it on Facebook Marketplace. We got $250 for it. Ethan really needed a good microphone if he's going to take this seriously. We'll get you something else for the basement. Your old one was too expensive anyway." I just stared at her. That chair wasn't some random piece of furniture. I bought that with my bonus money when my team finished a big project. I picked it out after weeks of back pain. I sat in it at the showroom, imagining myself finally working like a real professional instead of hunched over a kitchen table. "You sold it," I said slowly, "without asking me." She shrugged, finally looking at me with this annoying mix of confusion and irritation, like I was the unreasonable one. "Lauren, it's just a chair. We share things in this house. We needed money. Ethan needed equipment. You can sit on anything and work. You're young. You'll be fine." Something inside me went very, very quiet in that moment. For years, I had tried to explain my side. I tried to remind them what I contributed. It never stuck. But standing there listening to my mom talk about a chair I bought with my own paycheck like it was just shared property she could sell for Ethan's next hobby purchase, I realized talking was done. "You didn't share it," I said. "You sold it. And you didn't need money. You needed my money again." Her jaw got tight. "Don't start, Lauren," she warned. "We're all under pressure right now. You know how expensive everything is. And Ethan is trying to build something. He needs support." There it was again. That word support always flowing one way. I nodded slowly. "You're right," I said. "Everything is expensive. That's why some of us have been paying more than our share for years." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I walked over to the counter, grabbed my phone, and opened the Notes app one had been updating for months. I scrolled, then turned the screen toward her. "This is what I mean. Rent, utilities, groceries, subscriptions, Ubers, Ethan's course, his equipment, half the stuff you don't even remember asking me to pay for." I watched her eyes move over the numbers. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. "That can't be right," she said weakly. "That's exaggerated. The totals are crazy. Things were tight, but not that tight." I tapped the screen. "Screenshots, bank statements, receipts. It's all there. You can look at every line if you want." Ethan walked into the doorway halfway through this, a video game controller still in his hand. "What's going on?" he asked. "Is this about the chair?" "Mom, I told you she would freak out. She's so dramatic about everything." I turned to him. "You think I'm being dramatic? You sold my chair so you could buy a microphone for your TikTok videos. A microphone I'm sure you expect me to help pay for when something goes wrong with the order." He rolled his eyes. "Relax. It's not that serious. We're family. We share. That office was just a room. You act like you built a hospital in there." A laugh came out of me, sharp and humorless. "You're right," I said. "It was just a room. A room where I work the job that has been keeping this family afloat while you play influencer and Mom pretends we can afford everything because magic money appears every month." Mom stepped in quickly, her voice rising. "That's enough, Lauren. You're being disrespectful. We're all just doing our best. Ethan is trying to find his path. You've always been the responsible one. You can handle more. That's just how it is." There it was. The script. You can handle more really means you will handle more because we don't want to. I felt my face go cold. No, I said. That's how it used to be. She frowned. What are you talking about? I slipped my phone into my pocket, suddenly done with this entire conversation. I'm talking about the fact that I'm moving out this weekend. The room went completely still. For a second, I thought maybe they hadn't heard me. Then Mom laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. Don't be ridiculous. You can't just move out. Where would you even go? You know how expensive rent is. You're not thinking straight. Ethan snorted. Sure you are, he muttered. You're mad about a chair and a room, so you're going to run away and make everything worse. I looked between them, feeling strangely calm. You pushed me out of my office without a second thought, I said. You sold my furniture without asking. You took my money, my time, my energy like it was owed to you. And you never once stopped to think what would happen if I stopped giving it. I have somewhere to go. I have a lease. I'm moving my bed and the rest of my stuff out on Saturday. Mom's face went through disbelief, anger, and something that looked almost like fear. You can't do this to us, she said quietly. We need you here. You help with everything. You know we depend on you. I nodded. I know. That's why I'm doing it. Because as long as I'm here, nothing changes. Ethan scoffed. You're just trying to punish us. You'll come back. You always do. Maybe that had been true in the past. Not this time. I walked past them, went up to my room, and closed the door before they could say anything else. I sat on the edge of my bed, opened my phone, and pulled up the U-Haul app. My thumb hovered over the screen for half a second. Then I picked the date, the time, and the truck size I needed. When the confirmation came through, I felt this strange mix of fear and relief wash over me. Downstairs, I could hear Mom and Ethan arguing in low voices. The words were muffled by the floor. For once, I didn't try to hear what they were saying. They had made their decision the second they chose his ring light over my chair, his studio over my office. I was just finally making mine. Saturday came faster than I expected. All week, Mom acted like my announcement had been something I said in anger. She kept saying things like, once you cool off, we'll talk about rearranging the basement or we can get you a new chair eventually. As if buying me a used office chair would erase the fact that she sold the one I loved without asking. Ethan mostly avoided me except for a few comments about how I was really going to mess everyone over because I got upset about furniture. I didn't explain myself again. I just worked, packed, and watched the clock. On Saturday morning, the U-Haul truck pulled up in front of the house right on time. The orange logo was bright against our block of old brick buildings. I stood on the sidewalk for a second with the keys in my hand, feeling neighbors look out through their curtains. Mom opened the door with this fake smile, like she still thought she could talk me out of it if she just said the right thing. You really went and rented a truck, she said. You're being so extreme. You have no idea how hard life is out there. I carried the first box right past her without answering. My mattress, my dresser drawers, the last of my clothes, the cheap lamp I actually liked, the things I had intentionally left behind so they would notice when they disappeared. The whole time, the house felt oddly quiet. No music from Ethan's speakers, no TV, just the sound of my footsteps and furniture scraping on wood. At some point, I went into the kitchen and took a piece of printer paper from the drawer. Sitting at the table where we had eaten 100 takeout dinners I paid for, I wrote at the top in big letters, what Lauren has paid for in the last 12 months. Then I started listing everything. Rent I gave my mom each month with the exact dollar amount. Electricity and gas I covered when she came up short. Phone plan. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, all the little subscriptions everyone used without thinking. Groceries and delivery orders. Ethan's $600 creator course, the ring lights, the camera stands, the must-have accessories. Ubers for Mom when she didn't feel safe taking the subway at night. For Ethan, when he had job interviews or networking events, he never followed through on. Next to each category, I wrote the total for the year. Then I drew a line at the bottom and added them up. $18,600 and change. I stared at that number for a long second. That was almost an entire year of rent at my new place. I grabbed a magnet and put the paper onto the front of the fridge where nobody could miss it. Mom walked in just as I stepped back. "What's this?" she asked, reaching for it. I moved faster and put my hand flat over the paper. "You can read it," I said. "You just can't take it down." Ethan came in behind her, barefoot, yawning like it was any other Saturday. His eyes looked at the truck outside and then at the paper. Mom's face went pale as she read the numbers. "This is exaggerated," she muttered. "You're making it sound worse than it is. Nobody asked you to do all this." I laughed under my breath. "You didn't have to ask. Every time you said, 'I'm a little short this month,' or 'Can you just put it on your card and I'll pay you back,' that was you asking. You just never followed through on the second part." Ethan frowned when he saw his name. "You didn't have to write my stuff on there," he said. "You're trying to embarrass me." I shook my head. "No, I'm trying to be clear. You both keep telling yourselves we're all struggling the same way. You're not." I put the pen down and looked at both of them. "This is the last month I will ever pay for this house." Mom opened her mouth like she had something sharp to say, but nothing came out. Ethan just looked angry and uncomfortable, which honestly was the first time I had seen him feel anything besides entitlement in a while. I loaded the last box, then went upstairs one final time to check that I hadn't forgotten anything that mattered. My old room looked weirdly bare. The bed frame and a few random things would stay. I left them on purpose. I wanted there to be empty space where my life used to be. When I carried my pillow down the stairs, Mom was standing by the door, holding on to the edge like she needed it to stay standing. "Lauren, please," she said quietly. "Just think about this. We need you here. We can't afford for you to just walk away." I paused, one hand on the doorknob. "You should have thought about what you could and couldn't afford before you pushed me out of the room that paid for all of this," I said. "I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this because staying here is killing me." She shook her head, eyes watery. "You're being dramatic. You'll be back. You always come back." "Maybe," I said. "But if I do, it won't be as your paycheck." I stepped out, closed the door behind me, and climbed into the driver's seat of the U-Haul. As I pulled away from the curb, I saw them in the side mirror standing on the front steps. Mom had her arms wrapped around herself, and Ethan kept glancing from the truck to the paper on the fridge through the kitchen window. For a second, guilt twisted in my chest like it always did. Then I pictured my new studio, the sunlight on the floor, the key in my pocket, and I kept driving. That night, I unpacked as much as my sore arms would allow. I made a cheap dinner in my little kitchen and sat on the floor among half-open boxes. My phone buzzed a few times with texts from friends, a notification from my bank about the U-Haul charge, nothing from my family. The silence was almost weird, but it also felt like proof that I was finally on my own. I went to sleep on a mattress on the floor, exhausted but lighter than I had felt in years. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating so hard it nearly slid off the nightstand. The lock screen was a wall of missed calls from Mom and Ethan, and a dozen notifications stacked on top of each other. For a second, my old habits kicked in. Something must be wrong. Someone must be hurt. I grabbed the phone and opened the messages. The first text from Mom was simple: "Call me." Then, "You changed the passwords. We can't log into anything. The internet bill is due and it's higher than I thought. Please fix this." Then, "We can't afford this without you. Please answer your phone." Ethan's messages were more frantic and less polite. "Bro, the Wi-Fi is out. I can't stream. Did you kill it on purpose?" Then, "Seriously, Lauren, none of this is funny. Mom is freaking out. We can't pay all these bills without you." My phone started ringing again. Mom's name flashing on the screen. It buzzed and buzzed, the vibration filling the little studio. I sat there in the quiet, staring at her name, at Ethan's text stacked underneath. For years, every time that phone lit up with their crisis, I dropped everything to solve it. I answered from meetings, from dates, from my own sick days. Because if I didn't, everything would fall apart. I watched it ring until it went to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. And I let it. I set the phone face down on the table, took a breath, and made myself a cup of coffee while it buzzed. They pushed me out of my own office like I was optional, like my work and my boundaries didn't matter. Less than 24 hours later, they were begging me back because they were finally feeling the cost of that choice. If you've ever wondered what happens when the person holding everything together finally stops picking up the phone, this was just the beginning. The calls didn't slow down after that first morning. If anything, they came in waves. I let most of them go to voicemail. Old me would have picked up on the first ring, already mentally rearranging my budget. New me looked at their names on the screen, felt the spike of anxiety, and put the phone face down. I still read the texts, though. Curiosity is stubborn. Mom swung between guilt and anger. One minute it was, "I can't believe you would do this to your own family." And the next it was, "I'm sorry. I'm just overwhelmed. Please call me. I don't know how we're going to make it." Ethan's messages were a mix of complaining and entitlement. "You really killed the Wi-Fi. Seriously, you ruined my stream." Followed by, "At least fix the accounts so we can downgrade." I drank my coffee, logged into work, and let their emergencies stay theirs. My days in Queens were boring in the best possible way. I woke up, made breakfast in silence, worked through my design tasks, took a walk when I needed air, cooked simple dinners, and went to bed without anyone asking for my card number at 11:30 at night. A few days in, Mom left a voicemail that sounded different. Her voice was small, not sharp. "Lauren, I know you're angry," she said. "I know you think we don't appreciate everything you did. Maybe you're right. But the gas company is threatening to shut off service and I didn't realize how much was in your name. We're behind. I don't know what to do. It's getting cold. Please." I felt that familiar tug in my chest, but I didn't call back right away. For the first time, I let them sit with the mess. New York winter answered her before I did. The temperature dropped hard. A couple nights later, my phone lit up again and something in me said, "Pick up." I answered on the third ring. Mom's voice came through fast, almost frantic. "The heat is out," she said. "The furnace stopped working. It's freezing in here. The repair guy says it will be at least $400 just to get it running. We have nothing. We're overdrawn. We can't afford this. Please, I don't know what to do." Old me would have already been on my banking app, typing in my password. I took a breath instead. "Did you call the gas company to set up a payment plan?" I asked. She hesitated. "No. You always handle those things." "Exactly." I stared at the wall. "Mom, I'm not moving back there," I said. "I didn't ask you to move back," she snapped. Then her voice cracked. "I was their daughter, their sister, not their built-in rescue plan. People like to say that revenge is about making the other person suffer. But sitting in my little studio, looking at the sunlight on my desk, I realized my version looked different. My revenge was living a life they no longer controlled. It was forcing them to grow up by stepping out of the role that kept them small. My mom learned how to budget without assuming her oldest would silently fill every gap. My brother learned what it feels like to earn his own money instead of spending mine. And I learned that loving your family doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. If any part of this sounds familiar, if you're the one everyone calls first and thanks last, ask yourself a question I avoided for years. What would actually happen if you stopped fixing everything? Not in a dramatic disappearing act, not to punish anyone, but as a choice to finally choose yourself. You might be surprised by who falls apart, who steps up, and who, for the first time, learns to stand without leaning on you.